I am starting this because everybody involved with Enter the Mind Dungeon that I was seeing and speaking with and interacting with on for the past 4 months or so, I've rarely, if at all, spoken with any of you. So I was like, I'm going to reach out to everyone on an individual basis. And then I was like, shit, what if I just record it and ask them some silly questions and call it a podcast? And that's Influence and Homage. I'm here with Cassandra Moselle, who is an actor. How's it going, Cassandra?
Things are about as good as anybody could expect on a beautiful Friday in August in quarantine. So just main goal is staying cool.
And you're in Phoenix right now.
Currently, for the first time, I'm in Phoenix, and it is 111.
Well, they probably say something like, well, it's a dry heat, and this is a wet heat or something like that. And I'm like, I imagine once you get up to 118, it doesn't really matter if it's a dry or a wet heat.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although I guess if it was a wet 118, that would probably be completely miserable.
They're both, I don't know. I guess after I go try my 118 wet heat, I'll be able to compare and contrast for you. I'll get that essay right out.
Yeah, that's like walking outside and someone drapes a hot towel over your whole body. Just like...
No.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started here talking about The Thing. So The Thing is... for most of us, it's art, right? But then we kind of break art down into different disciplines and categories, and I think that one of the things I'm realizing as I do this is that I like saying, well, for one thing, I like hearing myself talk, but another thing is that art is a survival mechanism, and art is necessary. Mm-hmm. So you're an actor, but you're also a dancer as well?
So I've done burlesque for over 10 years, and then I have an MFA in physical theater.
Oh, awesome.
So, so I've done that for a little while, and then, I've trained in motion capture a bunch. I've trained in voiceover, and mask making, and I joined the circus at one point, so I've just kind of dabbled, and then actually, intensely studied multi-disciplines, as it were. Okay. Yeah.
Nice. So like the MFA and the physical realm is what is that geared toward? Like, is there a specific focus to that, or is it kind of an all-encompassing thing?
Yeah. So I did my MFA in Italy.
Oh, wow.
So the first thing was just speaking Italian at a university level when I I graduated in Italian 103 from university, so there was a jump. We got it. It was fine. And then it was a lot of, for one part of it was really studying commedia in Italian to the point where we were doing full commedia shows in piazzas in Italian for the other Italians. And boy, you definitely knew when you did it right, and you really knew when you did something wrong.
Okay.
So, that was part of that foundation, but a lot of it was just actor as creator. So it was being able to think how can I create work as an actor, and how can I create work with my ensemble? So, with comedy after that, it was clown training. So we had a formal clown training and kind of being able to tell stories. And a lot of it was, non-Italian speakers performing and needing to be able to use their whole body in order to communicate to people as a common language when we didn't have that vocabulary. That, came through in clown, that came through in circus. At least for me, I ended up specializing in object manipulation. So my party trick is hand fans. I can do really cool object manipulation tricks with hand fans that I learned in circus school. From pin juggling is how I got started in that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's really amazing.
Yeah. So it was great. And then, I studied physical theater in a plum yard in Malavitsi, which is Bohemia, Czech Republic. So then you had to pick up like your half a dozen Czech words in order to get by.
Right.
And then you're like I toured the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and you just, obviously language was like, okay, well, I guess we're not talking. So what are we doing? So it was a lot of just like how to communicate your whole body, and then they kind of took away the vocal aspect.
Did you ever find yourself in any situations where you weren't performing, where that sort of communicating without words skill came in handy?
Yeah, 100%. So I was in Germany, and so my last name is the French spelling of Moselle, Moselle, but it runs from Germany, Belgium into France. So I was on the German side at Mozel. So that's how they spell it in Germany. And I'm there, I'm like, great, here's my river, here's my valley, here's my wine, this is great, can't speak any German at all. But I get an email going, you need to pick up steel-toed shoes. And I said, okay, great, because I did an archaeological dig in Rome because I thought it'd be fun because I was killing time one summer in between programs. So I was like, okay, well, great, I'm just going to pick up some steel-toed shoes. So I start, finding a shoe store. So I found a shoe store, and I'm looking around, I'm like, I can't find the work shoes. And so I'm grabbing a shoe, and I'm like hitting on the toe going, hard, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh yeah, and they like walked me over, and then they were like knocking on their steel-toed shoes for me. It's like, this one. And I was like, oh, perfect, great, thanks. That one.
Just on an archaeological dig in Germany, no big deal.
Well, yeah, I was in Germany. It was going to be in Rome. It was Villa della Vignace in the Aqueduct Park.
Is that where the dig was?
Yep, I was on the first year excavation for it.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I consider myself a bit of an armchair anthropologist, so I'm really into anything like that.
Nice.
Reading about it from the comfort of my couch and my computer rather than actually going on digs. I also got to ask, tell me about the circus. And was it like this really cliched romantic story where you ran away from home and joined the circus?
No, not at all. Nothing like that. It was part of the program, a lot more of like really honing in on, form, physicality, working on an ensemble. So, we did a lot of partner acrobatics. The circus was like the time where like nobody spoke English. So by the time we got there, like, you're so tired. It was like full days. It's like 8-hour days, and you're just working the whole time, like as much physical everything. And then you're like, the one instructor, a great person, but would just yell stringy at you. Stringy, stringy, stringy. And it's just like trying to get us to like engage our core. But it's just,
okay.
That's all I remember is the Italian instructor who looked like he might have just got out of the military. I don't know, but he's just yelling stringy. We're just like, I can't move. There's no stringy. I'm all stringy.
That's hilarious. Someone told you what stringy meant at the time, I imagine?
Yeah,
okay.
we quickly figured it out. There was a lot of there'd be a word, and then there'd be a demonstration on what the word meant, and they'd be like, oh, stringy. Got it.
Right. Tell me about when you first knew that you wanted to do this thing.
When I was a kid, all I ever did was perform. It was since I would make my cousins, anytime that we had a big family function, I used to make them go in the garage and rehearse sketches with me. We'd make puppets, it'd be stick figures. So it was for so long that when I got to community college, I took anything but acting classes because I'm like, oh, maybe I'm a secret accountant. I don't know. Spoiler, I'm not. I'm not a secret accountant. I tried it, not it. I failed the class. It's literally the only class I ever got F- in.
Oh, dang.
Avoid this.
I don't know if anyone's actually a secret accountant. I feel like if you got that accountant life calling, you kind of know it at an early age. You know what I mean? I don't want anything to do with those numbers at all.
I now have empirical data that I should never be in that profession. If anybody ever suggests it to me, I'm like, oh, no. I have my report card that'll tell you.
Right.
Never again.
What's your next thing that you're doing? Do you have a next thing on the docket?
I feel like there's post-quarantine goals, and then there's like reality.
Right. Pencil things in right now. Don't put anything in pen.
At least for right now, I can say that I've been doing a lot of like improv classes with Second City out of Chicago.
Oh, wow,
and
nice.
I found a couple of people who we just work really well. And so we've been meeting, a couple times a week for a couple weeks now. We're just writing sketches, and we're getting together. We're trying to figure out, okay, well, what does improv look like on this sort of format? And we're going to record some of our sketches and see what happens. So we're just sort of experimenting with that right now.
I love sketch comedy. It's one of my earliest loves. I used to do a sketch comedy show on public access. So are you guys doing it like via Zoom?
Yep. So we're all in different locations. One of them is in DC, the other one's in New York, and I'm out here in Phoenix.
Do you have any advice for anybody that would like to get into getting started doing this?
One of the things for me, I know that I've talked about different things that I've done, and it's just stay curious, whatever it is you're doing. And so if you want to get started, be like, just start, and then you're going to hear things as you go along. People are going to say, maybe somebody in a class will talk about a technique, and you're like, oh, what are techniques? Just very, and then you can get curious and like explore those things and figure out what is right for you, because sort of just as I've, kind of been on my own personal journey, at one point, I started burlesque because theater wasn't right for me at the time. And I had the ability to find a place that was the right place for me to keep going. And then later I could come back around and return to something. So, I just would say, like, keep being curious. There isn't a right way of doing things, or really even a wrong way of doing things, as long as there's that spark to be curious about how can I do better, or what skills do I need to be an actor, or who are people taking classes from? Like, it can just even be like, how do I get started might just be the spark of that journey of being curious.
That's awesome. I think that's really good advice. Like, you definitely frequently hear from people. I think one of the answers that you hear a lot is just do it. Like, right? Like, what's the advice to someone who wants to do it? And the advice is just do it. Just start. Just go ahead. But I think that stay curious is really, really valuable as well, because just starting, it's like sometimes you get to a point where it's like, where do I go from here? Mm-hmm. But there's always things coming up. Like you said, there's new stuff. And if you stay curious, there's, a million different rabbit holes you can go down exploring.
Yeah. And one of the best books I read, and I can't remember the author's name, but the book is called Flow, and it talks about how people learn, essentially. And when if you're feeling like, in the heavyweight league and you really shouldn't be there, you're going to kind of feel that sort of disconnect. You're like, oh, I'm in advanced class, but I should not be in advanced class. Then you can kind of go down to like basics, right? But if you're getting to the point where you're getting too comfortable, I think that's the time that you need to figure out how you can change what you're doing in order to keep growing in your skill set. So that would be the other big thing, is knowing when it's time to move on and grow with your own skills is the other sort of valuable aspect of staying curious.
All right, Cassandra, let's talk about the weather.
Great.
Small talk. What's something you would want people to know about you that you haven't already told them?
Only because it's on my mind. I've just started, I'm now a novice horse rider.
A novice sports rider?
Horse rider. Like I
horse
ride,
rider,
like
okay.
Horseback rider.
All right, horseback rider. I thought you said sports rider. And I was like, oh, cool.
Oh, that is very cool.
There's no sports going on right now, but that's awesome.
Hey, in my sports riding world, I just make it up as we go along. But,
okay.
Horseback riding. That's something that I just started doing, and it's been great. And am a very proficient up to trotter now.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Very exciting.
It's like a fast walk.
Yes.
Okay. A fast walk on an 800-pound animal.
Yep, exactly. That I'm supposed
terrifying.
to control and steer at the same time, and I have to be precisely doing things just right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm terrified of horses. That is a massive animal. I don't think I belong anywhere near an animal that could kill me without any effort at all.
Yeah, I will tell you, the first time I did it, my legs may or may not have been shaking quite. Like, it was really just how to breathe on a horse might have been theoretically what my first lesson was like.
Yeah, so. Yeah. No, that's an intimidating animal. Tell me about an unpopular opinion that you hold. And this doesn't have to be something like world-shattering, you know what I mean? It could be like, I don't like SpongeBob or something like that.
I mean, this one is like, I feel like I did not ever grow up with eating bacon. Not for any religious reasons or anything like that. It's just not anything I grew up with. So I am not like, I don't have bacon everything that I feel like most other people have experienced.
You don't fetishize bacon is what
I don't. I don't.
Yeah. Culture, I think the bacon fetish has kind of died down a bit, but like from like what, like 2008 to like maybe 2018 or so, just like everyone had a raging bacon hard on. It was crazy.
Yeah, I thought it was really weird because I'm not like, between, bacon or sausage, I was the kid that picked sausage. You know what I mean?
Sausage is pretty good.
I don't know. I mean, I appreciate everybody else like taking bacon to levels I never thought possible. I just never tried it.
I think that there was probably some secret ploy by like the pork farmers of America to like, use memes to insert bacon into the collective consciousness as this it thing for a while. And if they did, kudos to them. That is a master stroke of marketing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like bacon. I like sausage. So you've eaten bacon, right?
Yes, I've had bacon.
Okay.
I appreciate a good strip of bacon. I just maybe don't eat it multiple times, and maybe even like I might eat it once or twice a year.
Right. It's not the end all be all of food. Do the vibrations that make you continue on in some capacity after your body functions cease, or is that the end of Cassandra Moselle?
I'll say they go on. I like that answer.
Okay.
Lives on, even if I turn into compost and then I feed the plants and trees. That's how my vibes go on.
Cool. No, that works. That's that's one that we wrestle with, and I like to say we because I don't want to be alone, and I wrestle with that all the time. Yeah. But there's a body of evidence in the form of art in the history of humankind that tells me that I'm not alone. So, existential dread. Do you experience it?
I experience it quite well. Yes, I'm very well acquainted with existential dread. It's happened many times.
How do you deal with it?
At least for me, I just kind of reevaluate going like, okay, great. Well, what's important right now? Let's just say if this is it, then what do I have to prioritize this exact minute? And then that kind of helps me refocus to get back on track a little bit.
Focus on what's important right now.
Yeah. Just the right now, like what's important right now? Like what am I afraid of? Is it just like snap, you don't exist and you're out of existence? Okay, right. Cool. If that's true, I'll just go with it. Like, okay, great. Let's say that's true. What do I need? What feels good for me to happen before that? Maybe need to re-engage with my family a lot more because that's important to me, or just do sort of a thing. But I mean, as much as it is, I'm like, I haven't found any cures for existential dread. So I'm sort of like seating of my pants dealing with it. Right. But when it pops up, you're just like, okay, well, why now and why today?
Right.
And sometimes I think it's because I'm feeling stagnant. Why am I thinking about this right now?
Right. I definitely find that projects and just making or building or anything, creating something, whether it's writing, drawing, producing and directing, building a bench or a table, just engaging the mind and the body in a project and losing yourself in it. And that to me is that's not just keeping the dread at bay. Like the dread goes away completely in those moments, and that task kind of becomes everything. And so I think that's, I mean, to me, that's kind of one of the, making stuff is one of the most human things there is to do. So I think that I don't even know what I'm trying to get at with these questions. These things are, All right, let's talk about our thing. So we talked a little bit about how we met and entered the Mind Dungeon. And this was the first thing that we worked on together.
It's good for Anthony to have some adult friends.
Oh yeah, Beth here thinks I spent a little too much time at the Build-A-Bear on the mall.
That's true.
And so we were shooting a proof of concept for Enter the Mind Dungeon that we were going to do a crowdfunding thing earlier in the spring in like April, May, and then we were going to shoot in the summer.
Yeah, that was the plan.
Indeed. So even though you were only there for one day, do you have a favorite part?
When I came down to shoot, I thought I was just doing the proof of concept for somebody else who couldn't make it. So I didn't realize I was going to actually do the thing until you emailed me at the beginning of the year. So realizing I was going to do the thing was kind of my favorite part.
That's awesome. Because we probably hadn't communicated since the day you came and shot with us.
Yeah. So
that's my fault. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just thought I was filling in for somebody because I was just like, yeah, I'm available. I'll fill in, no problem. And then I got an email later. I'm like, oh, great. I get to do this more. That's awesome.
Well, I'm sorry for not making it clear to you at that time that we wanted you on board.
It's okay. It happens.
Okay. Well, cool. Awesome. That would be my favorite part too.
I'm sure he still loves us very much.
What makes you say that?
Let's talk about process and practice.
Yeah.
And when you're at your most as an artist, when your training and passion and the material all kind of coalesce into peak performance, what kind of conditions make that happen for you?
I think the biggest thing is that being able to read a script and just like immediately connecting with that character, right? So you can get really excited about their journey and about the character discovering what their journey is in this story. So for me, at least now anyways, it's just being able to read something and be like, oh, awesome, I love X, Y, or Z about this, the character's journey or this, or just like, once you read something and you start getting excited about it, I think that's sort of like the best thing you can, and I mean, that's what they tell you should do all the time and everything, but sometimes there's just something where it's like, I get it. You're just like, everything's sort of coming together and you're like, I got this. I try to get a hold of the full script because that's going to help inform the side. Like all of the choices for the side, any choice I make needs to be validated in the script. In theory, obviously, some things have to get left out with smaller or short films or just a smaller script, and you need to work with the director to figure out some things. But if you're working on a full feature script, all of your answers should be in there.
It gives you a greater sense of context.
Yeah.
Of what you're doing.
And it helps answer all of my who, what, when, where, why right off the bat in that format. And then I can also figure out, I've written 3 plays now, and now I'm doing it a sketch, and every time I get a side, I always think, why is this important? Like, why is it this side? And how does that fit into propelling the story forward? And I think the other thing I am is, like, especially in scenes or working with scene partners, it's always this idea of, I like the idea that what I want is always through my scene partner. So, how do I turn tactic? I think tactic is just play for me, right? In the sense, like, if you're not getting what you want in this approach, then you need to adapt. And that's all in that sense of, like, that's all very fun for me to to think about and explore. So I think it's really just like breaking down, like, you know, what is the script, what is the who, what, when, where, why this now, like what's the journey, and then how do we get there, and then in this sort of micro audition aspect, it's why is this the side they pulled for this character, like what is their transformation just in this little segment here.
It's good for me to hear a lot of this stuff because I don't necessarily have a lot of classical training. Well, I don't have any classical training. So hearing so actors are, you know, mostly a mystery to me. I'm just like here's a script that I wrote or co-wrote, and I'm like, do the thing.
Yeah.
And you know, you guys do the thing, and like you're great, and I'm like, this is amazing, like cool. Mm-hmm. So it's maybe a shortcoming of my own that I have not fully recognized the craft of acting and the depth of it, because I'm always sort of impressed when you start talking about these bits of process and stuff like that. So it's really fascinating for me to hear these things.
Nice.
Which I don't know if you would have ever imagined that when you were going to work on a super micro budget indie, that the director was a guy that didn't even know anything about acting. But apparently that's the case with me.
And it works out just great.
Nice. Well, awesome. Let's go to influence and homage. Tell me about a piece of art that touched you and changed the way you look at the world.
One of the most influential things that I saw was I was in Manchester and I saw this Stanwell dance company, and they did a performance. And it was the first time I'd ever seen physical theater. And so what they did, they had two actors who were in a kitchen. They were a couple. And how they moved was they were on a tilted stage that was kind of like diamond and sort of tilted up a little bit. And it had a cage around it. And dancers, which kind of were allegorical as like the devil, as it were, because it was a argument scene. The dancers, through moving through the bars, would move the actors with the body part. And the actors had to not only stay focused, do the scene, have all of that aspect to it, but they couldn't move unless a dancer moved them. And it wasn't like somebody took their shoulders and went like this. It was like, no, the dancers like would be changing from one bar to the other, and their toe would tap a shoulder, and they'd just turn with it, right?
Wow.
That blew my mind because I had no idea that was a thing. Like, what is this? They're telling me it's theater, but I don't know. I have questions.
That sounds almost borderline mystical.
Oh, it was like, I was just like, I want to do magic.
Right, yeah. So let's talk about 3 artists that influenced you.
This is a very eclectic group.
Cool.
So
I like it.
This will count as one, even though it's 2 different people, but Dario Fo and Branca Rame were Italian playwrights, and their philosophy was to have theater accessible. So they used to do shows like at the train station in Italy. And there's a lot of stuff that they were working through. You know, they're working, you know, during World War II in Italy. It's fascist Italy at the time. There's a lot of stuff that's happening, but it's a lot of their moving forward and how they were writing and what they were writing. If you haven't read any of their work, it's been translated. I highly recommend it. But just how they approached theater, just what they were creating just really resonated with me. They have a collection of stories, and I think, I'm trying to remember the big title for the one collection of plays I have. It's like Orgasmo Goes to the Zoo, and there's like one woman who's a housewife, and she's locked in her house, and it's her talking to her neighbor as like they've heightened sort of the everyday things that are happening, and it's just like ludicrous, but it's just kind of like taking different stories or monologues or different scenes and then creating, you know, this whole collection of pieces that they can put out. And then some of the stuff, you know, is smaller, so you can see like, okay, I can see that they, you know, are doing this not in a traditional theater. And I just like, you know, theater doesn't need it's on a stage with seats. It can be at the train station or in a piazza or on a bridge, just like it can just be. I really liked Carol Churchill, who's a playwright out of England. Dream Play is, I think, the name of it, but just how she was approaching like writing a play was one of those times when I was studying Carol Churchill in like a playwriting, like women playwriting class in England. And it was just really nice because that was the first time where I kind of did have like a traditional like classical canon script that somebody had given me. So, things were just in a different format. There was different genre. It's the time that I really understood that, there's different techniques to writing a play. It's not all very cookie cutter.
Right.
And I've really liked a lot of her work in general. And I've read a lot of her stuff, so I like what she puts on, and, anytime I see somebody doing Carol Churchill, I typically go see it. And then, I love Mae West. I read all sorts about Mae West. Mae West, very similarly to me, went from, like, the cabaret burlesque world into film, produced a lot of their own stuff, and just sort of did a lot of pioneering that I'm like, oh, that is amazing. I've seen so much of Mae West's work.
Do you have a favorite story?
Like, I can remember the story and I reread it, and it's a short story, and it's called The Bloody Chamber, and that's by Angela Carter.
What's that about?
I'll just start. So I have 5 degrees. One of them's in women's studies, which is why you keep getting some of these, like, very specific, like, Carol Churchill, female playwright, Britain, or like Angela Carter. So it's it's Gothic literature, is I believe how they've styled it, and it's about it's kind of like Crimson Peak in a sense, where like a girl goes and is married off to a royal guy at a castle, and it's just like, okay, well, you're married to this guy now, and you can go anywhere but this one place, and obviously she goes to the one place, and then, well, I won't ruin it for you. But that's essentially one of those. Well, you can, from the title of Bloody Chamber, you can imagine why you don't want to go into the chamber, and she does.
Uh-oh.
And then
you're going to want to stay away from that bloody chamber.
Yeah. She didn't know at the time. No, it felt like it had a sign that said, "This is the bloody chamber, stay out." It just said, "Stay out." Yeah. Okay. Apparently, he was cleaning it up or something. I don't know.
So she inadvertently went into a chamber that she previously had not known was bloody.
Exactly.
Okay. Who would you kill to work with?
At this point in my career, anybody. Just really, I just would like to work.
Sweet.
We haven't worked in so long.
I know, right?
I'm really at the point where I'm just like, anybody sounds good right now. Let's just get going. I'm ready to go back to shoot some film, personally.
Right. Ready to come? You're going to be coming back to Washington right in time to for the return of the autumn.
Yes, and autumn is my favorite season. So
okay.
I feel there's just everything all around is A+ as far as I'm concerned.
Everything's coming up Millhouse.
Love it.
Yes, the autumn. I always hear people talk about how they love fall, and I'm like, I don't. Fall is like going back to school, and it's starting to get cold, and the rain is coming back, and soon it's going to be dark when I get up, and then it's going to be dark when I get off work, and like, I want perpetual spring. I probably need to move to Northern California or something. I don't know. Do you have a presence online where you would want to tell people to go look for you at?
Yeah, I'm at CassandraMoselle.com.
CassandraMoselle.com.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Cassandra.
Of course.
It's been awesome and educational.
Thanks for having me. Thanks. It was fun.